This isn't live, though.
But we are live.
When we're cool, we'll be doing live. That'd be
alive.
Cool. Was Joe Rogan's, the first podcast, I decided to watch it. That was live, wasn't it?
The first one?
Yeah. His very first one, he had snowflakes falling, and people were like, these snowflakes are really irritating.
Yeah.
He's like, come on, it's Christmas.
Yeah, he found out really fast what people like and don't like. Because people fucking just ripping him comments on, like, stop eating chips while you're doing the podcast. It's super loud and annoying. We're going to burn the studio down.
That first episode made our episode seem amazing, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
I want to say, like, the first 25 minutes of that was them just dicking around on the computer. Like, what does this do?
Yeah.
What does this do?
Super annoying
to watch. It's like, dude, come on. We're here. I think he only said he had, like, 18 people watching, though, when they first started it up, so.
Yeah. Yeah, for a long time, they just did them like that, like, on his computer. They were bad for a really long time, like, the quality-wise. And then for a while, they did them just, like, in their friend's, like, living room, just, like, sitting on the couch. But it, like, looked super weird because they were, like, filming themselves, but they all had, like, headphones and shit on, and, like, it was just, it was old school.
You know what? Yeah. We're going to intro this anyways. Hey, guys, welcome to the next episode of the Dream Crushers podcast. This is an exciting episode. For those of you on YouTube, you're going to figure it out real fast because you can't see our faces. We decided to stop filming it.
For now.
Yeah, for now. It was just taking too much time to edit. This is exciting, at least for me, because I think we'll finally be getting podcasts out on a regular basis, hopefully weekly. Really don't see why not. If you actually listen to the podcast on, what is it, Anchor? Several things. Mm-hmm. You'll be getting them immediately. So if we're out here recording once a week, which I don't see that being a problem, you'll actually get them once a week. And so it'll be much more guaranteed. For the few people on YouTube that have commented that they love to see our different locations each time, sorry, that's going to suck. Instead, you'll get to look at this amazing image of both of our faces. But on the bright side, you won't have to stare at your screen the whole time. Yep. Plus, the camera, I don't know if you guys knew, but the camera we were using only lasted 19 minutes before shutting down. So we would have to watch the time like a hawk and make sure that we reset the camera and got it going again. We don't have to worry about that so much anymore, and we were trying to keep them down to around 20 minutes. Now, these podcasts very well may go over
17 hours.
Quite possibly.
So sit down, strap in, and prepare for a ride.
This is the battery thing right there. So the battery level of the sound recorder may hinder the 17-hour thing, but...
All right. Well, away we go.
Indeed.
There was this, I don't know if it's like a law of science. I think it's a law of science that states energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only changed. So, like, you know, a lot of times, especially in modern day, we think of like creating energy. You know, we're doing whatever, or you have a little electricity generator and you feel like you're generating electricity and that's making energy, but it's not really making energy, it's just transferring energy from one thing to the other, you know. Mm-hmm. Simplest form of boiling water. The boiling water is energy created, but it's energy that's taken from heat, from a flame, from some fuel source that's burning. And long ago, when I was in college and I was taking some automotive classes, we had this rocket scientist come in, like legitimate, like actual designated rocket scientist, which is funny because you always hear that term, but I've never met one before, but I did. And super nice, like old guy. And you could tell he was just like wicked smart, and he was telling us about different things, and he was responsible for creating a bunch of different renewable energy sources, and he did a lot with car stuff, but also that had to do with like natural energy sources. And one of the things that he was talking about was nothing is free. So coming back to the energy cannot be created or destroyed, it's only transferred. So anytime you take energy from something, it's coming from somewhere, and something has to change, something has to alter. He gave an example of this. They have these energy, like these electricity generating things that are generated by waves, and so they put these things in the ocean just off the shoreline a little ways, and it was like these big kind of wheels with like paddles or something on them, and as the waves would roll in, it would turn these big things, and it would create energy. And so it's like, okay, thinking about it, you would think, okay, that seems like a pretty like free source of energy. He said that when you used it enough, like the setup that you had to have to use it enough to create enough usable energy, it affected the tides so much that it would actually pull the moon closer to Earth, and it would affect our like the tide levels and other things that like the moon has an effect on.
That sounds like bullshit. I'm sorry.
It sounds crazy, but
I learned that tides were affected by the moon, not the other way around.
Well, yeah. Well, if it's the tides are affected by what, the gravitational pull of the moon or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like imagine the moon overhead and picture an egg. It's oblong shape. That's basically what it does to the ocean. So wherever the moon is, the water on that part of the earth, all the water essentially rushes to
coned up.
Kind of to point towards the moon, if that makes any sense. So you just picture the moon always at the tip of the egg, and the water is basically just following the moon around. And it's obviously the earth doesn't look like an egg, and the tide in the grand scheme of things doesn't move that much, but that's basically what's happening. It's just pulling all the water to a certain location wherever the gravitational pull of the moon is, but affecting tides in order to pull the moon. I don't think that's a thing.
It's basically saying that because the water couldn't move. I think how he broke it down, this was like a long time ago, and I mean, I don't know, he could be wrong. He was a guy. He's allegedly a super smart scientist.
Yeah, guys are always fucking wrong.
But yeah, I mean, you can't take everything for 100%. But basically, what it sounded like is the moon moves the water. If the water can't move, then the moon moves towards us.
That's crazy. I'm gonna have to look that up and see if that's true.
But either way, the laws of science are seen in other ways. What's another good one as far as like taking energy?
There's a lot, and it's actually interesting. I think I knew this already, but never put it into practice. I was like thinking of different explanations, like you're talking about. We're technicians. We do AC and heat. That's all the same thing. You don't get, like, your air conditioner doesn't. A big thing when you're learning AC is they make it very clear that you're removing heat. You're not actually cooling the air, because it's just a transfer energy, what's happening. And basically, without getting too into the system and boring the shit out of people, is the refrigerant absorbs heat through moisture in the air and relocates it to another location. And on cars, it's the condenser up front. So basically, you're taking heat out of the car and moving it outside. And in your house, it's the same thing. It's absorbing the heat from inside your house, relocating it, and via a fan, it's blowing it out into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing in that it's basically just moving the energy.
Yeah.
It's altering
it's
it
just
a little
transferring
bit. It's not
Shuffling
actually
it.
ruining it. It's not getting rid of it. It's just relocating it. And I guess that's basically what you're saying, is it's all the different types of electricity generation, windmills and stuff like that. It's like regardless whether you're spinning it by hand, it's taking energy to move it, to create it, or it's the wind that's moving it. So that's about as free as you get as far as free energy, is finding something that can actually generate the electricity that you need.
Yeah. One of the things that, the whole reason that I was thinking about this and brought it up is because it's basically, the fact is everything on Earth that's here, that we've, so-called created, built, everything, all of that's already been here. It's just been different, Like, nothing, we haven't changed, we haven't created anything new. We have buildings and we have glass. It's all just taken from natural resources. We've done some sciencey things and changed chemical compounds of things, but it all started as something here. And one thing that I heard that was interesting was somebody talking about how, like, people are basically, like, everything in the world is natural, Plastic is natural because it came here. Just because we changed it doesn't make it unnatural. And it might be like a lot harder to return back into what it once was because of how we've manipulated it, but we are basically the giant forms of ants, or bees. Bees go and they take pollen and they bring it back and they do a chemical process with saliva and other weird things, and they make honey, and they build, nests, and they build honeycomb, and they have wax, and they do all this. We're just the more complicated form of that, and we are nature. It's so often that we separate ourselves from nature. We think that we're, like, since we're smart and sophisticated, that we're like animals, and plants are one thing, and then there's people, and we're different. We're unnatural almost, it seems. But it's like, no, we just are smart enough to do things in a way that has benefited us so much that we seem so far removed. But everything that we do is natural. It's a natural form because we are natural. We are animals. And it's interesting because, like, on how this pertains to, like, life and death, especially it gets a little bit more complicated when it comes to people, but as far as, like, animals, so, like, in nature, absolutely nothing gets wasted. A deer dies for whatever reason, say it gets sick or whatever, and it dies, and it falls on the ground and it's dead, and then a bear finds it and the bear eats it, and then some vultures find it and the vultures eat it. And even if no other animals found it, it would break down because there's bacteria and there's fungus everywhere. It would rot. It would go back into the earth, re-nourish the soil and the dirt and all the little microorganisms. Like, everything eats. Nothing like dies and just is, like, wasted, and, like, it doesn't come back into the system. Everything circles back. And, like, I think about this a lot when people talk about, because we're people and because we're emotional, we talk about, like, animals going extinct and, like, things like that, and, like, being, like, it's, like, super sad. And, like, partly, yeah, it is sad because we're people and we like to look at things. We're observers. We think it's neat. We think they're cute. We think they're pretty. But the truth is that 99% of all species that have ever lived on Earth are extinct. Over the millions and billions or whatever years that the Earth has been spinning.
And not just because of us.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, the dinosaurs aren't here. Not because we killed them, but,
like, before humans were even around, like, it was, like, in the high 90s, the percentage of species that were around before. And so it's just kind of a natural process. And when you think about it as nothing is created nor destroyed, it's only changed. So all of those dinosaurs, all the flying animals, the bacterias, the microorganisms, the mushrooms, the trees, everything that had ever lived in the past, it's all still here. It's just different. And I think that, like, one of the reasons why, like, you know, people talk about climate change and people talk about, like, the world, like, looks different and everything seems like a lot less natural. There's so many people, and I think it's because nothing is free. You know, you say, like, energy can't be created or destroyed, but there's now, 7.5 billion people on Earth, whereas, like, a few years ago, it was like, I mean, not a few years ago, but like hundreds of years ago, there was like a lot less. And it's like something's got to give for that energy to be able to be around, you know, to support 7.5 billion people. There's got to be less resources, less trees. There's got to be less animals. It only makes sense. There's got to be less something, less mountains, whatever the energy is coming from. It's got to be taken from somewhere, because all the energy that's here has always been here, and it's just changing. It's like weird to think about. You know, maybe that's why there were so many animals in the past, is because there wasn't 7 billion people. There was only animals. So there was all different kinds of species.
So basically what you're saying is, once the population gets so great, there will no longer be a source of energy to keep us. So we're eventually going to need to start taking energy from one another, because we're not going to have the trees or the animals, because we don't have the plants to feed the animals. We don't have all this stuff. All the energy has been converted into human form. Now, how do you keep all these humans alive when there's...
Well, you don't. That's the thing. It's a reason. Mother Nature always wins. So she doesn't care about what we have planned. So unless we figure out a way to, like Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about, becoming a multi-planet species, like we'll run out of resources. And then what I kind of see happening is like a big buildup, and this might be not for, you know, another million years or whatever, but the only logical way that I see it happening is it builds up like a big bubble, and there's all these people, and times get really hard, and then there's a bursting point when society collapses, everything falls through, and then it kind of goes back to like a super primitive state where a ton of life becomes extremely difficult to maintain. Food is gone, resources are gone, power, all this stuff, everything basically reverts back to a primitive state, which causes a ton of people to die off, ton of people to be eaten by animals, and the balance is restored.
I was going to say, I feel like there's got to actually be a balancing point, aside from the thought of like famine and whatever, disease and all that. There's got to be a certain point where, you know, nourishment for humans is eventually going to level off. We're not going to be able to find it. So it'd be a shitty time for a lot of people, because I feel like nature would just naturally balance at that point. You can't nourish all these people, so those people are going to die, and so population technically couldn't grow anymore at that point.
Well, we are very good at breeding.
Right, but if you can't keep people...
Well, that's the thing, though, is like that would be like the bursting point, because it wouldn't be like we slowly build up to that point and then, we realize there's not enough food, and then everybody like stops breeding. Like there's 7.5 billion people. Those 7.5 billion people breed with each other, it's like an exponential growth. So it happens faster than you can even like realize that there isn't enough resources everywhere. And it would keep happening. Even in times of famine, people still get pregnant because people like to have sex. It's like a weird natural process. It's like if you say you have an island and it's full of, say, chickens and cows, just to make it easy. and the chickens and cows live in harmony, and there's like a bunch of plants that they can feed on, and they have a good like natural order of things, and it's sustainable on that island. Okay, now you introduce wolves. You put and it's a fairly small island, you know. There's a couple hundred cows and maybe 1,000 chickens or something, and you put a couple packs of wolves on there. Those wolves go through and just decimate and eat and kill everything faster than it can repopulate, because that's what wolves do. They kill and they eat, and they're not taking tab of anything. And eventually what happens? They eat the island completely dry because there's so many of them and they're so hungry, and they eat it all. They kill it off, and now they literally kill every cow and every chicken. Now there's no more to reproduce. There's no more cows and chickens going to be found. There's no other animals that are on this island. And then the wolves all die off. That would be like our version of that. It's like the simple form of our bubble popping. And because we're much more vast and we're pretty cunning, I don't think it would be a complete extinction unless we did something to like super alter the state of the earth and we went into some crazy ice age and there was like no life left besides like microorganisms. I think that it would be like just a gigantic drop in population, which they say there's been some research done by quite a few people, and it's very intriguing. I think it's I want to say 12,800 years ago. They think that the Earth was, or like the United States was covered with 5 miles of ice. And during that time, the Earth's population was dropped to like a super, super low percentage, like thousands of people. It was like a number that was like in the thousands for the whole world. And we had to like build back up. It was like some big asteroidal impact that caused all this crazy shift in weather and all this stuff that happened. Kind of like what happened like during like the dinosaur stuff, but this was like only 12,800 years ago. And they think that it caused like a big like setback in human history. Like so often I think when we think about human history, it's linear. It's like the dawn of time, you know, things started forming. There was apes, and there, you know, it started with the small animals, and then it went to more complex species, and then there was apes, and then humans came, or cavemen and humans came, and whatever, and then it just kept going up, you know, and then now we're here, and this is like our most highest level that we've been at. But there's been some like pretty compelling evidence to state that there was high times before where it got dropped off, and that was like one of the things.
What are we talking about, like way back in the day?
At different time periods, but the one...
I certainly don't want to go off on a tangent, but I'm picturing stuff like the lost land of Atlantis, and I guess Egypt was huge and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, that's one of the theories behind Egypt, because supposedly hearing people talk that know some facts about Egypt and the pyramids, I'm pretty sure they said that we couldn't build the pyramids today. Like with all of our modern technology, we couldn't build them today as good as they are now. So what they think was that there's a possibility that they were created by a super technologically advanced society, and then they had died off for some reason. And then there was kind of like a setback, and then started back up, because Egypt has a crazy, crazy long history, and they've found that like the Sphinx is way older than everybody thought it was, because when you look at the face of it, it's super weathered from rain. The way that it's weathered can only be caused by rain. It couldn't be caused by wind or sand or anything else. It's only by water. And they haven't had rains that bad in like whatever the time period was, tens of thousands of years ago. And so when we think of Cleopatra and like the typical like Egypt shit that you think about when you think about pyramids and stuff, like the pyramids and the Sphinx and all of that stuff that was like carved and made outdates that stuff way back. Cleopatra is closer on the timeline to the iPhone than she is to the pyramids.
That's awesome.
That's fucking crazy. But all of that being said, coming back to energy being kind of created or destroyed, it's like it makes you think about death, we are beings of energy. So what happens when we die? It's kind of the age-old question. And there's a lot of different beliefs. There's a lot of religious beliefs on what your spirit does, and but there's a lot of people out there that think that because it's almost a reincarnation type thought, because the energy cannot be created or destroyed, and
right.
You are energy. And so it's like, but what is it? Is it just the body that's energy? Is it the consciousness? Is the consciousness the so-called soul? Does that go to one place, but the physical body, the energy from that, just gets redistributed into a bush or into a mouse or into an elephant or another person again one day? Where does it all go? Where does it come from? That's what got me like thinking back to like the basics of the energy thing.
You're making me get really deep in thought here now. Just thinking about stuff I haven't thought about before. And my mind is just going to dark places. Trying to keep on topic. One, I think that many of our beliefs, even though I still don't know if nobody knows, which one is right, but I feel like all these are made up to make us feel better about something because we can't answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
So, since our brains are so powerful, we can, at least somewhat see into the future, not in the future, but, just in our minds and stuff like that. We can plan ahead.
Yeah.
And
the near future.
I guess we're like one of the only creatures that even has that capability to do that.
That's what makes
like,
us different, is awareness of
exactly. We
time
know that
and
we're
death.
able to die and we can't do anything about it. And other animals don't live like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm going to die one day. But the whole thought about, what happens when we die, this is what went through my head. Imagine a large vase full of clear water, and you drop a tiny little drop of food coloring in there, just one single drop, and you watch what happens. It swirls, and it eventually, it disperses so much, dilutes into that water, that it's essentially nothing.
Yeah.
It didn't change. I mean, maybe with some machine or something you could see, the change in color, that slight tint. But I guess what I'm getting at is that's what I picture. Imagine we're out in the forest or whatever, and we die, whatever, and you
just disperse into the land.
You soak into the ground. Ants take you this way. Other bacteria does that. Wolves, whatever. Exactly. And I guess that's the darkness of the thought, is you're nothing at that point.
Yeah.
You're nothing, but you're everything.
You are
you've been spread out.
You are a drop of ocean taken from you're a drop of water taken from the ocean that the ocean forgot about.
So that's kind of creepy if you think about that as well. I mean, here's a little. Were you in the room a couple days ago when I was telling about what I heard? You read the same book though, so you'll at least know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Aubrey Marcus's book.
Mm-hmm. On the Day on Your Life.
Exactly. He told the story about how this family went to Japan or something like that, and they had KFC in Japan. And they ordered their chicken and they sat down, and the kids got irritated. They were like, I didn't order fish.
Yeah. I
ordered chicken. And they're like, the parents were like, this is chicken. I mean, see the bones? I mean, this is the wing. This is this is chicken. And they're like, no, it's not. This is fish. I hate fish, and whatever. And then he goes on to explain that they actually weren't wrong, because the whole old adage of you are what you eat is exactly what happened to these chickens. In Japan, they were feeding their chickens with, fish meal and just fish flesh and stuff like that. And it was their only source of nourishment.
Yeah, like they didn't have proper grains and stuff.
Right. And so the makeup of their flesh was actually how their body processed the fish meat. And so in essence, in that weird kind of chemical way,
it's like a fillet of
they
fish.
were eating fish because that's all they had.
Yeah, fillet of fish nuggets.
So, I mean, that alone in that book, that was one of my favorite parts, was the whole you are what you eat thing. And basically what you just have been saying all day is that transfers energy, or the energy is transferred rather. And so we are, what we've taken into our bodies, because we were nothing before that. I mean, we were just little fucking eggs or whatever. So it makes you think a little bit more about what you're eating and what you're putting into your body. And it's like, maybe take a little more care with that. But thinking about also all these people that have been around, we very well may have little bits and pieces of other people in us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like definitely, as far as like the energy, we have energy from everything, from a redwood tree, from whatever, a piece of dirt. It's so crazy.
Cleopatra dies. She gets buried, absorbs into the soil, even though they mummify the shit out of them. So maybe that doesn't work so well, but whatever. In theory, it gets soaked into the soil, finds its way into the water. Trees and plants use that to grow. Somebody else eats those plants, and voila, tiny little circle right there.
A little banana. You got a little banana Cleopatra. You got you're eating a banana. It could have been, who was another like guy that was dead and buried, It could be.
Lots of people have been dead and buried.
Yeah.
Lots of people.
You're basically eating people.
Yeah, pretty much.
How's that for veganism?
There's a full circle right there, too, because when our population gets so extreme, like I said, we're not going to have the plants and the cows to eat. We're going to have to start eating each other in order to keep going.
The struggle's going to be real. Too real. Yeah, it's interesting. I always like to ponder death and what happens, and wondering,
so dark.
Wondering, but it makes it like less scary when you just think about it,
Is it though?
Kind of.
Because that's the
part of it is like ignorance is bliss, but like part of it is too like you can only be ignorant for so long. You get sick or whatever, or somebody close to you is really old and like they're about to die. You start thinking about it then, and you hadn't thought about it at all, and then all of a sudden you haven't given it any thought, and you're like, oh God, like they're gonna be gone. They're just gonna be gone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, scientifically speaking, they're not. They're always here. They're with us. They're part of their consciousness is in us, in our memories. Part of their physical self is around us. It's in the trees, it's in the air. We're all connected. We're all everything, And that's like another thing for people to think about when they want to be fucking shitty to each other or racist. It's like we are all one. We're all the same thing. We're all unique in our personalities, and we all look a little different how we were formed, but we're all the same thing over the thousands and millions of years that people and animals have been around on this planet. Like, we all have a piece of each other.
I don't want to play the devil's advocate, though, but personality and the way people are raised is a huge varying factor. It's like the one, I feel like maybe that can't be considered energy, but that would be the one energy that actually is created without using something else, and that is just how somebody appears or their behavior or something like that.
Your behavior is taken from other energy. You just said it yourself. How people are interacting and how they're raised is how they become.
Well, right, but I guess the point is I'd like to think that I'm super unracist, or, you know, anything as far as, you know, judging other people and stuff like that. But I'm a believer in the golden rule and stuff like that. You know, treat people well as they want to be, or as you would want to be treated. But there's some people that genuinely don't deserve it. And I know you've met those people.
Yeah.
They come up and they're just a total piece of shit to you, and they have no reason. They don't know you. So I think that's a big part of why there's so much hatred in the world. I don't know who started it.
Yeah. But it's viral both ways, though, you know? So people that are shitty and has a bad day and they run into somebody and they're shitty to that person, that puts that person in a bad mood, you know? That shit rubs off.
Yeah, it does.
Especially if you don't have the mindset to be aware of that thing and you let it affect you, like, and then you go off and it's just contagious, just like laughter, just like happiness is too. So it's like all you can really do is make sure that you take care of your own state of mind and make sure that you're not affected by that, and just try to maintain a positive attitude and keep injecting that into the people around you, because it is contagious. And I had another thought when you were talking about something. Oh yeah, Duncan Trussell was talking about the whole, like, treat others as you would like others to treat you, and he said that it also works. I forget like how he said it, but it was basically that works both ways. So don't forget to treat yourself how you want to treat other people. And it was kind of like a self-love type thing, but it was just kind of...
How does that...
Kind of interesting. Cause like,
how does he mean though?
Like, so like, I think it's more geared towards people who are like really nice people. They're like really like nice to other people, but maybe like really like self-loathing, you know? They're very nice outwardly, but they kind of hate themselves. They don't really like themselves. They never feel good enough. But they're super nice people. But they just always kind of seem like they're beating themselves up, you know?
That seems to be most people, no?
Yeah, maybe that's why the saying works then, you know? Treat yourself as you would treat unto others.
I mean, we're so involved with how other people see us, and it's like that's all anything matters to anybody. And partially, and that's probably why people are nice to people, and that's a shitty reason to be nice to somebody, but...
Yeah, but I don't know. Well, one thing too that's interesting is I like going back to what I said about how I like think about like death a lot. It's just like it just interests me because it's unknown. You know, nobody truly knows, because once they die, they're dead and they can't report back. But like, I wonder if when you die, like if you know, like does it just turn off? It's like consciousness disables and it's just, you don't even know. It's like when you go to sleep, it's like you wake up, you don't really know, like unless you have like a certain dream that you remembered, like, but most of the time you don't even, you just close your eyes and you were just gone for like, is that what death is it just turn off and you're gone? Or is your consciousness transferred to another place? Do you know? Or is there like something that happens in the transition period and then it goes dark, you know? It's like, that shit interests me.
Once again, I think that's where religion came from, is we can't
finding an answer.
We can't fathom nothingness. We can't fathom the end of the universe. We can't picture, you know, that it goes on forever and ever and ever. I feel like there's got to be something there. And so when we die, it's the same thing. Our minds can't. It's like it can't just be the lights go out and nothingness. We've only experienced somethingness. So just the thought of absolute nothingness is like, I guess, sound potheady, but it's almost like darkness is not even nothingness.
It's like it's still something.
It's still something that can be sensed and processed.
Well, that's what I mean. I didn't mean like it just looks dark, like you see the darkness, like you're aware of it. Just like it's just like nothing. Like when you sleep, it's not darkness. It's just nothing.
Right.
So I wonder if that's what death is like, or what if it was just darkness?
I feel it's.
What if you were still there and it was just darkness?
We're only gonna know when we die, but yeah, I mean, I'm not bad-mouthing anybody's religion, because nobody fucking knows anything, and that's kind of the whole point of the conversation. But we hear stories about, people seeing the light when they die and stuff like that, and I've heard research about that, about how your mind is essentially shutting down. These are people that have died and have been dead, for several minutes, and were able to be brought back to life and stuff like that. And they're like, basically what you saw was images of how your brain processes being shut down and stuff like that. And by the sounds of it, it's in essence a dream. It's not really any different than going to sleep. When you're going to sleep, your brain's rebooting, your brain is shutting down. It's doing the processes it needs to do in order to regenerate itself for the next day. And so also an interesting thought too is you hear story about people, dying temporarily, and they've been gone for what feels like, months. But apparently what happens when you sleep is everything slows down, which is why some of your dreams seem like they last for eternity. And again, it's the same thing. Your brain is shutting down, and why are you grinning?
Because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I know why. At least I have a theory why, or a hypothesis, as they say. Part of the stuff that I know is like factual things that have been told, and then part of it is just my own opinion. So it's all just kind of mixed in there. So take it however you want it, people. So DMT. For people that don't know, DMT is dimethyltryptamine. It's like a natural chemical that's produced in the brain, in the body. It's produced in many plants. It's in many animals. And we know some about it, but we don't know too much in depth about it. But there's been some research that has shown that DMT is produced when you are in REM sleep.
Meaning naturally?
Naturally, yes. Naturally. DMT is produced naturally in the body. There is a synthesized form of it that some people will smoke. And what it does to you is it basically sends you into another dimension, they say. It lasts for roughly 10 to 15 minutes. And they say that if you smoke enough of it to break, they say that there's this barrier that you have to get through. If you just smoke a little bit, you come to this consciousness barrier, bounce off of it, and you just feel funny, and you trip for a few minutes, and then that's it. But for people that break through this kind of skin that they say, you are transported. It's completely alien place. They say it's hard to describe it because there's no words for it, and you're just completely astonished. And some people talk about there being these little beings there that are like little elves, and they don't speak English, but they're speaking in a language that you don't know, but for some reason you know exactly what they're saying. And so anyways, that's the synthesized form of it. And it basically just makes you go to an alien realm, and everything's crazy. But they have evidence that supports that when you have a near-death experience, that your brain is flooded with DMT. It kind of prepares the body to die. So right before you die, your body starts shutting down. It realizes it's incapacitated, you're passed out, whatever. your body realizes, okay, it's gone past the point of it being like saving itself, like without an outside source reviving it, it's gonna die. And so your brain just floods itself with DMT, and it prepares you for death or whatever, some survival technique that's been evolved into us for whatever reason. But a theory that I have, because I've heard of the books that people have wrote where they had near-death experience, or they did die, they were dead for several minutes, and when they come back, they're like, I know that heaven's real. Mm-hmm. I know because I went there. I went to heaven, and I saw my sister who was there, who I hadn't seen in many, many years, and like all of these strange things happened to them. And for a long time, people are like, whoa, like that person died and went to heaven. They have proof. Finally, we have proof. But my theory is that when you have a near-death experience like that and you go past the point where your body doesn't think it's going to make it, it floods your brain with DMT and you have a crazy DMT trip, which when you listen to people that have done DMT in the psychedelic world, and then you listen to the stories of these people telling in their books about how they saw heaven, it almost matches up perfectly. And it's like, well, that's that. For me anyways. I'm like, that's how I kind of picture it. And that's like another reason why when people have like near-death experiences, they have like kind of a revelation, it can change their life, not just because they're grateful for life now,
right,
but because something happened that literally changed them. It was like a chemical process. And also too, when you have like super weird, strange dreams, a lot of scientists think that your body is like producing some DMT and you are like kind of tripping while you're asleep. Another interesting fact, this dude that I've like listened a lot to because it's super interesting, is this old school kind of psychedelic advocate, Terence Mckenna. He talks about all kinds. He's super like wicked smart guy, scientist, talks about things in very like sciencey ways. But he has a ton of personal experience. He passed away. He was like a while ago. He's like a really old dude. But this was he was talking about like psychedelics and stuff from way back in the 60s and 70s and all the way up into the 90s and all that before he died. But he said that when you smoke DMT and you have like a full trip, he said that even if you never smoke DMT again after that, he said that there'll be a time, even if it's a year later, when you're asleep and you're having a dream, and somebody will walk up to you in your dream and hand you the pipe with DMT in it, and you'll smoke it in your dream and have a full, completely new trip on DMT that was different from your original trip. But it's just as astonishing, just as profound. And it's like he said so he believes that there's some sort of a way that you could reach it, like at a natural state, obviously, because that was like totally natural. But he says he's only ever heard of that happening after somebody smoked it while they were conscious, like awake.
I wonder if you have to know subconsciously that it's the same thing, and that's how it triggers your brain to release the natural
version. Like some kind of linked pathway.
Experiment with people that have never done that or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
it
would be a very difficult like thing to try and reproduce scientifically, because you can't really control dreams,
So that's good. On this one episode, we crushed religion. We crushed afterlife. We've crushed your dreams.
Yeah. Wild. But, well, hopefully it left you guys with some questions or wondering, just pondering. This is all just talking, speculation, opinion. So if it made you guys think, then good. It's kind of the point of it, because we just sit and think sometimes about weird shit.
It's kind of what's happening right now. Every time I go silent,
head.
even sometimes when you're talking, I don't want to like insult you or anything, but there's sometimes you'll say something and my mind will just go off on its own little tangent that nobody can hear, unfortunately. Yeah, like, wow, that's an interesting thought I never thought about. Right on.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't talk about our whole lives right now, because then we won't have any future episodes.
Well, it was a good talk, just babbling. Hope you guys enjoy that. It's a slightly different form than what we've been doing, but it's fun. It's real. We're just chatting, and you guys are here with us.
Indeed. So, come back next week.
Mm-hmm. And crush your dreams, even though you're gonna die and become everything and nothing.
Yeah, you're nothing. You're just from dust were ye made, dust ye shall be.
Returned or something. Something like that.
All right, getting dark. Love you guys. Bye.
See ya.